Welcome everybody to the good old-fashioned NXT, but 2.0, so not quite good old-fashioned. A brand new, resurgent, more colourful, more Bron breaky and more Mandy Rosy version of NXT. I am Tom Colohue, your host for all things Tom Colohue channel, but as it's NXT and as it's an NXT watch-along, I could not ignore the fact that we have traditions here. We have rules, we have regulations, and that means that Tom, who has no clue really what's going on with NXT, brings in the expert, the guy, the number one. That is our very own Ed Fries. Hello, Ed. Yes, I said expert. I'm referring to you. Ed Fries is with us to watch this show today. Ed, how are you?
I'm doing well. Stand and Deliver was a fantastic show. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of interesting things tonight. As anybody who has seen me on NXT, on Love Wrestling will know, one of my absolute favorites is wrestling tonight. So I get to see my Nikita Lyons on tonight. So I'm very happy. It's going to be a fantastic episode, regardless what else happens.
I've been trying to encourage Ed to drop a few more plugs in the show over the course of any time that he's been appearing for an NXT watch party. Nice to see he's already dropped in NXT on Love Wrestling. So anyone who enjoys his work here can check out a regular show over on the Love Wrestling Network.
Indeed, indeed.
As well as that, Ed, I believe you've done some streaming of your own recently as regards 2K.
Yeah, I've done a couple streams. I need to get back in the rhythm of doing a few more. But on relaunch date, I did do a stream for 2K22 where I did some GM mode. I did some My Faction. I've fallen into a My Faction grind right now.
Right.
So I'm grinding those weekly towers. I'm trying to grind the Proving Grounds. So it's been a rough go streaming on that. But yeah, I have tried to do a little bit.
We have a few budding streamers or even some more experienced streamers in the chat and in the community at the minute, and it's really great to see so many people gaining so much confidence recently. It's a lot of fun and really reassuring to me. We have Sean Cena saying hello, Tom, and Tom in the Christmas sweater. Yep, it's 2.0. That means it's more colourful. And Megan saying hello as well. Sorry, I had to cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of our stat queen, Megan, I absolutely love watching Megan's sim streams. They are so much fun. It's so interesting to see how quickly she does the things that she does in those things. It's absolutely fantastic watching those.
I love how easy viewing it is. It is so laid back watching a Megan stream. It's just so chilled out. I watched quite a lot of the unpacking stuff, and it was just so fun to throw back to the old style of just sitting there while things go on around you and everything's slightly moved and slightly moved further and then slightly moved further to the side and then maybe they slightly moved a little bit more, and it's just reassuring seeing everything just moved into a proper place, you know.
Oh, Bron's got his new title as well.
Bron Breakker is opening NXT tonight. He does indeed have a new title. I see some blue in there. Is that just me?
No, so what they've done, they did it for the women's title too. They have the 2.0 layout behind the title, and then the plate goes on top of it.
I see.
So it has all the color underneath, but it's understated because of the fact that they have the plate on top of it. Mandy's looks even better. That white is now they have the official white strap for the women's championship now.
I did see that at Stand and Deliver. Megan says that's very kind of you, thank you. No problem, Megan. You're a very fun streamer to watch, gotta say. Sean says, think we'll see Dolph tonight or EO. I would say I'm confident that we're going to see at least one of them. Dolph, I'm sure. EO, strongly maybe. Definitely a strong maybe on that one. Ed, your thoughts?
I think we're still going to see everybody that we saw before. So Kaylee Ray will be here. Io Shirai will be here. I think most of them will be here. To anybody who didn't see Raw last night, our new NXT champion, who wasn't the NXT champion at the end of Stand and Deliver, is in the ring.
We need to talk about this because there are reports now that this was a last-minute decision, to the fact that even people watching Raw at the time backstage were not fully aware of what was actually going to happen. We have to ask the question of why. Why would he lose the match at Stand and Deliver and then go on to win the championship on Raw afterwards? It doesn't make that much sense to me unless maybe Dolph Ziggler's injured or there is some plan that will keep him there. But as far as I'm aware, Bron Breakker's on the way up. What do you think, Ed?
I think WWE had a change of heart. I think they had plans to do something different. and they had Stand and Deliver, and they were like, that wasn't what we wanted.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. And instead of fixing it on NXT, which would have been the predictable thing to do, they're like, let's put him in front of a big crowd. Let's put him on one of the biggest shows of the year. Let's see what the reaction is, and let's let him win his championship.
Certainly, I think he received a pretty good reception from the Raw crowd. He's receiving a better one from the NXT crowd right now, but of course, it's a more engaged crowd. It's smaller, it's closer in, and they're aware of him already because it's NXT. Do you think Bron's over with the main roster so far?
No. I think it's going to take some getting used to, because I think he was over on Mania weekend because that's the kind of crowd that knows who he is. On a regular Monday night, like when he debuted on Raw, he wasn't over because of the fact that they don't know who he is yet. He will get over very quickly with that casual main roster crowd, though. With the whole Steiner gimmick, with the Braun Breaker, with the colors. He's going to get over just fine. And this is an interesting development.
There are rumors.
I think you talked about this.
I may have. There are rumors as well that Rick Steiner may be in attendance tonight as well, though I do think that was likely just in a backstage element. My expectation with Dolph Ziggler retaining the championship was that Walter, or Gunter as he is known at this point, would be stepping into the ring with Ziggler going forwards. Now, there has been a title change. There has been an unplanned title change featuring Bron Breakker regaining the championship. However, it looks like we're not getting a change in future challenger. Imperium now in the ring. Gunter stepping up to Bron Breakker. And to be blunt, while I would have very much enjoyed seeing Gunter versus Dolph Ziggler, if we have the opportunity of Gunter versus Bron Breakker, I'm excited for that as a possibility. I really am. Jay Quick says, hi, I'm Jeeves, Elias's butler. Ezekiel sent me. I think someone's an Ezekiel fan and won't admit it. Megan says, I still don't get it all why they didn't just do the title change at Stand and Deliver. I agree, it's very confusing and really suggests to me that, as Ed suggests, they just changed their mind. I get the feeling at some point someone backstage said, okay, so we're not going to get Walter versus Bron. And someone else backstage said, oh yeah, shit, we're not going to get Walter versus Bron. And they've decided to change their minds. Sean says, thanks for talking to me in the DMs about what I sent you about Alexa. Sean has been asking me about a PW Insider report about Alexa Bliss and clarifying some of my previous reporting on that. For anyone who is interested, the phrasing that I've used when it comes to the return of Alexa Bliss is that she was going to be appearing after WrestleMania. To be clear, after WrestleMania does not automatically mean the Raw after WrestleMania. Just wanted to be blunt on that one. Megan is excited for Walter versus Bron, says I'm fine with this. And Jay Quick says I want Bron to start barking at Walter. The moments are coming. The moments are coming.
He already does bark a lot. So, I mean, he's fully embraced the whole dog-faced gremlin. He's embraced both sides. I just can't wait for him to come out in that Scott Steiner attire from like TNA. That late WCW TNA attire with the mesh hood and everything else.
I don't think we're going to see that for a while. I hope we don't. I want Bron to be able to stand independently without relying on someone else's gimmick. However, the WWE tend to take the lead from whoever is on top of the time. So, for example, we had Charlotte, then we had Charlotte Flair, then we had Charlotte, and then she was Charlotte Flair again. Bron Breakker may be Breakker Steiner, before you even know what you're talking about. We have our first commercial break after a promo in which Bron Breakker spoke about being a future main eventer for WrestleMania. Ed, do you think he can go that far?
Yeah, I think I said on NXT, within the next 2 years, he will be in a WrestleMania Night 1 or Night 2 main event.
That is a bold prediction right there. Do we see Chosen One in Bron Breakker? Do we think Vince is as big a fan as Triple H is?
I think so. I mean, he's a big dude. Vince likes his big dudes.
He does like big dudes.
He can have a match more than 5 minutes, so Vince likes that. So he can go 15, 20 minutes. His in-ring style suits the main roster just fine. It's not solely a style that's going to get over on NXT. I see no reason to say that he can't get over with Vince.
And if he's called up sooner rather than later, do you think he leaves a big gap, or is he relatively replaceable on that 2.0 roster?
It depends. He is one of the few great baby faces they have on that roster, but with somebody like Cameron Grimes, if you flip somebody like Carmelo Hayes, you can do an awful lot to get him over and be just fine. But if he leaves right now, there's going to be a gap, especially when you lose somebody like Tommaso Ciampa, so you already have a big gap.
Yeah.
You just lost Johnny Gargano, you have a big gap. You lost Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly. Like, you've got a lot of gaps here right now, and you're slowly bringing people in to fill them. But, I mean, when you lose so many people at the top of your roster, it becomes a bit problematic.
Sean says, Bron Breakker joins Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Karrion Kross and Tommaso Ciampa as two-time NXT champions. That is a very small crowd and really shows there is a certain length of time, a certain period of time at which you started having those two-time champions, but it was a real rarity before and, of course, since. I was not expecting to see Breakker be a two-time champion. Megan says they went to break right as the Creed brothers came out. They did indeed. We are now back in the action. The Creed brothers taking on Imperium. Imperium, for me, have added a lot to NXT since coming up from NXT UK. I feel they've added a certain gravitas, a certain aggression, and a certain athleticism on the part of Fabian Aichner's massive moonsaults that he does off the ropes. The Creed brothers are someone's I'm not particularly familiar with personally, though. Ed, tell me about the Creed brothers.
So Julius and Brutus Creed are fantastic, independent. It seems like they're of that Greco-Roman amateur wrestling mold, like a Chad Gable, like that. But they've got a little bit at the beginning. They had a little bit of that Bludgeon Brothers, like we're just guys. Like they would tag by slapping each other in the face.
Right.
They have that kind of aggression. They've learned a lot from being partnered with Roderick Strong. They've learned a lot from being partnered with Malcolm Bivens, because how can you not learn how to talk if you've been partnered with Malcolm Bivens? Because that man is an absolute genius. If you don't know, follow him on Twitter. You'll quickly find out.
Very true. Diamond Mine does seem to have the right collection of people to create the next generation. I don't know what that next generation looks like per se, but I would expect we're going to get something of a revolving door. You've mentioned Roderick Strong there, though. 3 out of 4 members of the Undisputed Era are now in AEW, and Roderick Strong doesn't have that long left on his contract. Do you see him leaving?
Maybe.
I'm hitting you with the good questions now.
Yeah. Roderick Strong was one of the guys that he was Mr. ROH, and he left at an odd time that people didn't expect.
Yeah.
And he became his own man. And he came to NXT when none of the others were there. And then they followed him. I could see him being very happy just making cash and working in NXT. I don't think he finds the personal fulfillment like the other 3 did. Mm-hmm. Again, this is me putting things on Roderick Strong based on very little information about whom he is and how he feels. But no, I think it's something that he will. I think he's eventually going to go, because AEW is going to want to put that stable together. I do love how creative they were, though. They got real creative. They dug deep, and they got the Undisputed Elite. So, I mean, that Tony Khan really put that creative juices to use to come up with something new and original.
I do appreciate that you've just made sure that everyone is aware where you're speculating and where you're being factual. I think you've watched quite a bit of someone who always makes it clear when they're speculating versus when they're stating factual information.
I try to do my best to uphold the same traditions that you hold on this channel.
I always like it, though, like, as an example there, the amount of podcasts you'll hear and podcast hosts on lots of different networks who espouse their opinions as facts and just say, oh, he's going to leave because this, he's going to leave because that, and so on and so forth. I always like to get your opinion because, 1, you make it clear that it's your opinion. 2, you are an expert in the subject matter of watching NXT. because you may laugh about the phrasing expert, but you watch NXT, you are an expert in what they're doing there, especially compared to myself. But also you give a very fair reflection. There are things that do tie Roderick Strong to NXT. Personally, I don't think that will be enough.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm expecting him to leave at some point. But, I mean, they're throwing the kitchen sink at this man to get him to stay.
They are.
They sent him to the UK to do a taping there, where he got to wrestle somebody like A-Kid and give a final grade on A-Kid before they brought him over.
Mm-hmm.
They had him wrestle before he left for a title match, which we will eventually see in the near future, if it hasn't already aired, Ilya Dragunov. I mean, Roderick Strong is getting everything he wants after dropping that title to Carmelo Hayes.
Indeed. I have no idea if that's aired or not. I have not watched NXT UK since it started. That's fair. Sean says, my guess is Vince would probably pick Cameron Grimes as the chosen one. Talk to me about the idea of Cameron Grimes being Vince's favourite.
I think he'll be a favorite of Vince McMahon in the same way R-Truth is a favorite of Vince McMahon. And if you ask Vince McMahon who his favorites on the current roster are, I guarantee you within 5 people, he is going to spout out the name R-Truth. Because while R-Truth is not booked like somebody who Vince absolutely adores, I guarantee you the reason why he's still with the company is because Vince McMahon adores this man to no end and will never let him go.
Of all the people being released, someone who is on one of the highest amounts of money of those that remain, R-Truth, will not be let go. Same as someone such as Titus O'Neil. He serves a purpose for the WWE beyond wrestling in a wrestling ring. And I think with a large number of people, you have to factor that in, that they provide roles and services. You look at Jerry Lawler, who's going to be making appearances on Raw over the next few weeks. They've never let him go either, because no matter what, they're always going back to the Jerry Lawler wellspring. Megan says, as regards Roderick Strong, if Strong does leave, a smart choice for him in my mind would be to have a deal like Samoa Joe with both Ring of Honor and AEW, but I think he'd appear more in Ring of Honor. That's what I would do in his situation. A large part of this particular option would be dependent on what AEW contracts look like nowadays, what Ring of Honor contracts look like nowadays. Is it a case that if you have an AEW contract, you wrestle on whichever show they tell you to, including Ring of Honor? Or is it a case, for example, that a Ring of Honor contract only means wrestling on Ring of Honor, and it means you can be, let's say, cheaper than an AEW contract, which also could include Ring of Honor? There's a lot of different possibilities there. We have seen Samoa Joe arrive in Ring of Honor. We have seen the Super Show, which I know, Megan, you really enjoyed, with some very good matches, but there are a number of people at the moment on that Ring of Honor card, at least of Super card, who are not going to be part of the AEW roster going forwards. Is there anyone, Ed, on... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you finished the question first.
Is there anyone on the Ring of Honor roster that you feel is too big to just be on Ring of Honor?
I mean, Samoa Joe. Let's start at the top with Samoa Joe. Yeah. If Jonathan Gresham is coming over and he's not leaving, which he is currently right now, still the undisputed Ring of Honor World Champion, he's too big to just be on Ring of Honor. If you don't know who Jonathan Gresham is, you really need to find out. This guy is an absolute technical master, and he is going to absolutely kill it when he gets in the ring with guys like Moxley, with guys like Bryan Danielson, with guys like Adam Cole, Kenny Omega. Like, when he gets to wrestle those guys, they are going to have incredible matches. My bigger question is, what happens to the current Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, Deonna Purrazzo, who wasn't booked for the double duty on Impact and ROH, like some of the other ROH champions were booked? Because the Briscoes were on both shows, and they did just fine. And now, granted, they lost their match, and so did anybody else who's not under a Ring of Honor, not under an AEW contract. If you didn't notice, every single person who wrestled an AEW versus an ROH champion who wasn't under an AEW contract did not hold their title anymore. with the exception of Gresham. Because technically, well, no, Bandito doesn't have a contract. I'm sorry. I remember Jay Lethal was out there challenging him, so, which is another bag of worms as to why Jay Lethal is on AEW Dark. But
it's unfortunately very hard at the moment to find something that doesn't feature a bag of worms. Unfortunately, it just is. I mean, look at Gable Steveson coming into WrestleMania and the use of him. There is a lot that could be talked about there. I'll leave it for now, but anybody who doesn't want to know what I'm talking about, it's not hard to find.
Just Google his name in college. You'll find all you need to know.
You will. Sonic is here saying, hello, Tom and Ed. How are you doing tonight? Doing very well, thank you, Sonic. And Megan says, when I saw the report about Jerry being on commentary, I have to admit my heart sank a little. You and me both, unfortunately. You and me both. Sean says, Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes was a dark match after Raw last night. Ed, are you disappointed not to have seen that?
No, I'm all for giving the crowd at Mania something to... I mean, think about it. The people who went to these shows got to see Seth versus Cody. Mm-hmm. They got to see Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. They got to see Sami Zayn doing one of the best hardcore matches I've ever seen. Even if I'm not a huge fan of all the Jackass guys and everything that happens with Jackass.
They made it work.
That match was hysterical, and Sami Zayn went out of his way. It's funny. Not one of the Jackass guys had anything jackassy happen to them in the entirety of that match. You have the guys who literally do this for a living. They're like, no. Sami's going to take all of the crap. All of it.
Well, he was the heel. Mogsy says, what are we thinking about the main event? Gunter to win and Breaker to move to Raw full time. Now, I may have missed this. Have they confirmed that we have an NXT Championship match in the main event of NXT this week?
I do not know. I had to, unfortunately, because the phone that I can have audio on both us and the show stopped working. So I have to use a phone where I have to have the volume low. I have not seen any graphic confirming that is our main event.
Nor have I.
But it could be. Huh.
So Mogsy, if that is indeed the case of what's lined up, then yeah, I would say a victory for Volta. I would say if that is the case and that is the plan, Bron Breakker becomes a transitional champion so that Volta starts at a bit of a stronger place than Dolph Ziggler did.
Is Bartel being kicked out of Imperium right now?
I don't know, but that's quite a bit of blood.
Eichner just walked away.
That is quite a bit of blood. Maybe Imperium not as strong as it was. Oh, why did you lick it? Why would you lick it?
Don't you know we're in a pandemic, Julius? No! Brutus, no!
In general,
sorry, I'm behind you.
In general, maybe don't lick it. Maybe don't lick blood. Just as a general ruling, maybe don't lick blood. Just going to say that. I don't want to kink shame or anything, but, stop. Mogsy and Megan have both confirmed. WWE's Twitter account has confirmed Volta and Bron will be the main event tonight. That very much seems like last second booking to me, and very much suggests that Bron Breakker might not be the champion going forwards after all. It does kind of look like a few people... Oh, wow, that is a lot of blood. It does kind of look like a few people are going to still be called up, just not necessarily for the Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
Sean says, do you think Liv and Rhea win the titles next week or do they break up? I do not think they're winning the championships. We'll see as regards a breakup. The Creed brothers have just been attacked from behind.
Oh, the mystery team is back. Yay.
And can I just say, that's quite a lot of hair. Who have we got?
One of them's got gray hair.
I don't know who this is.
This is Pretty Deadly.
Got it.
I think this has to be... Yeah, it is. It's Pretty Deadly. So this is... former or current NXT UK Tag Team Champions.
I can see the pretty. Very refined jaws, very long flowing hair, just in very different colours. Bit of a yin-yang situation going on.
Yeah.
Megan says, I think they might be exclusive for each company. This is as regards the AEW and Ring of Honor contracts, because Tony Khan had to clarify Samoa Joe is signed to both Ring of Honor and AEW. I would doubt in that basis that they have two separate contracts, so it looks like they aren't entirely exclusive, but I think some people will likely have exclusive Ring of Honor contracts, some people exclusive AEW, and some people will just have all the possible contracts. Hector says, Tom, did you see Fightful reported that Ciampa was a name pitched for Edge's new faction? That's interesting if it gives him something to do once a full-time member of the main roster. I'm all for it. Firstly, thank you for sourcing there, Hector. Do appreciate it, and welcome to the show. I have spoken at length about this during Spoiler Warning yesterday when several people did bring that to my attention as a possibility.
Big.
Can I hear the NXT audio on your side there, Ed?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you could hear it or not.
Unfortunately for copyright, I do just have to give you a little nudge.
Nope.
But that's fine.
I got you.
When it comes to Ciampa, I'm hoping he's able to be independent for at least a little while. But as a part of Edge's faction, I kind of get it if you're starting from scratch, as it were, on the main roster. Sean says happy 36th birthday to Charlotte Flair, and also says they confirmed the match as well as Dakota and Raquel versus Gigi and JC in a rematch from Stand and Deliver. That at least I was, aware of. Next up is Cameron Grimes with his new North American Championship. Ed, talk to me about the rise of Grimes.
So it's ironic because I watched him in TNA and he was fantastic. But I never thought when they brought him in as a heel who got literally booed mostly because of his hat. Because he had a hat that people just for some reason hated.
He did have a hat.
He had a hat. But they booed him because he had a hat.
Boo.
But he was like this great heel. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of a pandemic, we start having this crypto financial crisis where they go ahead and play it into his thing that he won a lot of money in that thing because he got in on the GameStop stuff and he got in on the Dogecoin stuff and he went ahead and cashed in and got big money. And then they had him with Ted DiBiase, and that was great because it got to flesh out the funny side of Cameron Grimes and that damn Ted DiBiase. And then you bring in LA Knight, who hasn't won anything meaningful in the entirety of his time at NXT.
True. Because
he's been used to put over everybody, yet still somehow feels like a big deal. So when people talk about burying a guy, he hasn't won anything worthwhile except for like one match against Cameron Grimes in the entirety of his time in 2.0. Yet every feud he's in feels important. And then Grimes wins the $1 million title, and it's one more that damn Ted DiBiase, as Ted DiBiase convinces him to give up the title, and he gives him a replica instead.
Yeah.
And then he becomes this absolute lovable, just baby face, talking about wanting to win a championship before his dad passed away, and then not being able to, and the heartstrings that pulls on as a son, with not being able to let your dad see the accomplishments that you wanted, a la Cody Rhodes last night. And it's special and it's different, and it's amazing how you can go from that hated of a heel to that big of a baby face and just make it seamless.
See, I was going to mention Cody there. I was going to mention Cody on the basis that I don't think anyone is more of an example of what 2.0 is all about than Cameron Grimes. It's not necessarily about wrestling. It's not about winning and losing. It's about characters. And he got there first. He got there before the change. He knew what was coming, and he created a great, fun character from which you can look at Baron Corbin as taking a lead. You can look at Cody Rhodes as taking a lead. This is a guy who does it first and doesn't get the credit, which I imagine quite a few people are very familiar with. He just became a very relatable character, just a little bit under the radar. And I gotta say, I really started to enjoy seeing him work. I really did. Megan says, as regards Pretty Deadly, they are the former NXT UK champions. Mustache Mountain are the current. Sean says, to correct you on something you said last night, Tom, this is as regards when I was asked how long Roman has been champion. Roman held the Universal title since Payback 2022, not SummerSlam, when I originally said, because SummerSlam was Roman's return. Payback was, of course, a week later when the match actually took place. Much obliged there. Justin, welcome to the show, says Raw got 2.1 million views, the highest in 15 months. And in Justin's words, lays a complete egg of a show that was awful. What I will say as regards viewership, the show that you're actually watching rarely matters as regards viewers. It's more about what it was. And of course, when it comes to good old-fashioned the Raw after WrestleMania, it's always a big one. The highest in 15 months? Yep, one of the highest since the pandemic, and I feel that has to be factored in, because I did see that it's up on the year before, but you do definitely have to factor in the pandemic for that. Do you think Raw last night was worth 2.1 million views?
I don't know. I stopped watching after Bron Breakker won the NXT Championship.
The bit that was important to you.
Well, I mean, I'd seen all the Liv stuff with Rhea, so I mean, I had gotten Liv and Rhea, so I'd seen that. I'd seen Bianca Belair. I'd seen Cody Rhodes. Everything I wanted to see, I'd already seen. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Okay,
lady.
Deep breath.
As Astrid tells me, don't die. I literally just got the message from Astrid telling me not to die.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dara Amazing says, hey, Tom and Ed. Welcome, Dara Amazing. Good to see you, mate.
Hello, Dara. Dara was actually our guest host, the
really?
Go Home show for Stand and Deliver, yes.
Wonderful. We have more streamers in the chat than I realised. It is great seeing how many people have had the opportunity to pop up on shows, to be guest hosts, to feel a little bit more empowered, as it were. Dara, I'm not familiar with your history as regards podcasting, so I don't know if this is something that you're already confident doing. But I am really happy to see how many talented people we have in these chats in so many different directions. KJ's joined us, says, oh wow, I didn't know you were streaming tonight. This is the final show of the 9 from over the course of WrestleMania weekend. I've drafted in some help to try and keep me from going insane. And of course, it's NXT, so I don't know much of what's going on. So we have Ed here. Welcome, KJ. Austin says, Raw was disappointing. Hoping for Asuka or Bayley or anything, but nothing after the Cody promo. It went down. Well, my opinion on this is that we may not have had much for the Raw after Mania, but I'm confident we're still going to have more to come. We have Alexa Bliss due back, Bayley and Asuka due back, as we know. And I've got to say, as regards NXT tonight, it looks like people might be saying their goodbyes. Ed, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be a group of these guys that are saying goodbye, whether it be... And Cody has been, on NXT, has been pounding this drum for months, saying to remember, any of the 2.0 talent is probably another 18 months away from being called up, because they're taking their time and they're developing this talent. And with WWE having more of a hand in NXT, that I think they're going to have more of a focus on what they're doing in NXT being similar to what they do on the main roster.
And this is true.
Now, granted, Pete Dunne is a bad example of that, because Butch.
That's fair, but I think it's a fair point to say it may take a little while for people to get called up in that regard, because 2.0 is a change. It's not a massive change, I don't feel. The focus is still very much on wrestling, but the addition of more character stuff has been a positive. Yes, you've got Bron Breakker as sort of the top of the line, as it were, but when you talk characters, I could see Wendy Chu popping up backstage on main roster programming for the next few weeks, just to slowly be embraced by the crowd there. Certain characters already fit perfectly in my eyes. Certain ones fit perfectly. Austin says, Gunter NXT champion? Yes, please. Seems like that may be coming. And KJ says, do we think either Gunter or Breakker go up after a loss tonight? I'm definitely confident we're going to see more Bron Breakker on the main roster. This is feeling like a bit of a sign-off show in his regard. However, he is currently the champion, and I don't know if they would give it to him only to take it away the very next night after he lost a match for it 2 nights before. That said, WWE are kind of booking this on the fly at the moment and making it up as they go along. So I don't feel we can guarantee anything. Ed, you shook your head there.
I mean, it just feels weird to give a guy a title and then take it away and be like, all right, now go to the main roster. When you could have just let Saturday be his swan song. He went out on his back anyways to Dolph Ziggler, so it's not like him losing to Gunther is going to make Gunther. Gunther's already a made man.
There has been some confirmation. I've seen, for example, Dave Meltzer stating that Dolph Ziggler was planned to be the NXT champion for a while. This is confirmation of what I've been reporting here on these Tom Colohue channels about it. When it comes to Dolph Ziggler, the plan very much was for him to be at the top of NXT for a little while yet, just basically having a few matches and preparing the next generation top-level star in NXT to take over. It looks like at this point, that whole plan may have been thrown to one side. I'll be interested to see if we see Dolph Ziggler tonight. But one man we are seeing right now is Solo Sikoa, who is stepping up to Cameron Grimes. When it comes to Solo Sikoa, I've seen a lot of people in this chat state that they're excited to get him on the main roster with the Usos. Do you think he's ready for the main roster, Ed?
No. He needs some time. He needs some time to develop. He needs to develop a personality and a character all his own, because if you just make him the third Uso, that's all he's ever going to be. And his street champion island roots character is so good, and if you can convince The Rock to come back, like in one of his promos earlier in NXT, he talked about, I am Solo Sikoa because I was down from day one, but then they left me by myself and I was left solo.
Yeah.
And I had to do it on my own. And it's nice to see him be like, yeah, my brothers are up on Raw and SmackDown, and, they're with Roman and my cousin, all that stuff. He's like, but they left me. They didn't bring me with them. I got left behind. And so I could see him siding with The Rock, and The Rock being like, I need backup, and having that nice little surprise for the Usos at some point.
I definitely think he would make a good rival for them rather than a good ally at this moment in time. Justin said it's important for WWE to have good shows when you get a good rating to try and keep them watching consistently. That is definitely true. Obviously, ratings don't matter as much as they used to, but it's still important. It is less important than it used to be, but the TV networks are still tracking that as they go forwards. KJ believes that Tony D'Angelo may have the best character. Do you agree with that, Ed?
Yeah, if we're talking pure character and gimmick and like old school way of talking about a character and a gimmick, I think that there's no better one than Tony D'Angelo. Because I thought from day one of seeing Tony D'Angelo, and I've eaten so much crow on this on NXT, that it's just, I thought he was one of those 90s, like, oh, he's a plumber, oh, he's a mobster. Like, oh, that's going to be stupid. It'll never get over. It'll never work. And it's been fantastic because he plays into it just right, and it feels like it's something he's a part of and that he's into. But my best character is this guy right here, Joe Gacy.
Joe Gacy on screen at the moment with Haaland behind him. I do love the juxtaposition that they've got here, just the way they've set this screen up, with Haaland just standing behind, just basically mugging into the camera. I think as regards Tony D'Angelo, he does have a good character. It's consistent. He is able to commit to it, and I think that's a large part of it. And I think it's very telling that Ciampa went out on his back to Tony D'Angelo, of all people. Hector says WWE released a video of Bron Breakker after he won the title back last night, being congratulated by AJ Styles backstage. Such a genuine gesture. Shows people like even AJ see something in him. We don't know first and foremost whether or not that was scripted, but certainly the fact that AJ is involved suggests that maybe that will be a way to bring Bron Breakker in, having Ciampa in Edge's faction and AJ looking for allies. There is certainly a possibility there. Megan says Wendy Chu's perfect. She can just randomly be sleeping everywhere. Her and R-Truth could be a lot of fun. It's worth pointing out, any show, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever it may be, every now and then you just need a character who makes you laugh. A character who makes you smile. There's nothing fancy needed. Just every now and then having a character that you can get behind, even if they're not necessarily in the ring, can be a great way to introduce someone. Dante says, hey Tom, do you think Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez will retain against Toxic Attraction tonight? Ed, do you want to start us off with that one?
I don't know. I didn't see Toxic Attraction losing the titles. I saw Raquel Gonzalez heading up. With having them win, it seems like they're going to keep her. I think Raquel still needs some time. I think she needs some seasoning. she can go with people who are ring generals, but every time that she's in the match with somebody who's not a ring general, it feels like it's a slight step down.
Yeah.
And while she'll be taken good care of on either Raw or SmackDown, because there's not one bad ring general on that roster with the exception of Xia Li and Aaliyah. I mean, any other female talent on Raw or SmackDown can, teach her exactly what she needs to know. But no, I think Toxic Attraction loses tonight because if they lost on Saturday, there's no reason to change it again tonight. But I would have said that about Monday night, and then Braun Breaker won. So
yeah, WWE very much booking on the fly as we speak on this one. As regards Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, I personally get the feeling, this is just mere speculation on my part, that what we're seeing is more of what we've seen from, for example, Tommaso Ciampa historically, not so much now, where he had a say in whether or not he was called up or not. Dakota Kai's return to Twitch, I feel, is telling. Twitch is still not something that main roster wrestlers are permitted to indulge in, but it is doing good things for Dakota Kai to get over and as a brand. Now, Raquel Gonzalez does not indulge in that. However, I do feel the partnership with Dakota Kai is sort of anchoring her in place. I think we're much more likely to see Toxic Attraction called up, even with the championship in Mandy Rose's possession, than we are, for example, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. What that means for Kai and Gonzalez going forwards, I'm not sure. But you look at Io Shirai, who's done everything she possibly could in NXT time and time again, but is still not on the main roster. I'm confused with some of these people why they've not been shipped up already.
My thing with Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction being called up is I don't think NXT has the faith in Mandy Rose to really do what they need her to do. And the reason why I say that is because Mandy Rose's best championship match since she won the championship was against Kaylee Ray on NXT television. A solo match against an absolute stud who can't do anything wrong and can have a good match with pretty much anybody. But they wanted to put her in there with Cora Jade twice now. And the first time they added Raquel Gonzalez to make it a triple threat. And this time they took the winners of a tag team tournament and had them cash in a tag team title opportunity to get 2 singles chances at a women's world championship because they seemingly didn't trust Mandy to be able to deliver on a big stage like Dallas and stand and deliver with just her and Cora Jade. And after having watched the stand and deliver match, that was a good idea because Cora Jade isn't ready to be on that big of a platform right now because she didn't have the greatest match.
That is true.
In that match.
I think that's good analysis, honestly. I think you make a very good point there. There is a certain confidence that is required of a champion in order to get someone over. Now, you look at, for example, there were problems in the Charlotte Flair Toni Storm program. There were definitely some problems in those matches. Maybe Toni Storm at that point wasn't ready to be where she was. Maybe there was some nerves and some confidence issues. We don't know what actually went on behind the scenes. But what we can say is that the matches were not the best in a similar fashion. NXT, we know people are developing. We know people on that roster are green because it's a developmental roster. They're supposed to be green. But when you get to the champions, their job is to help the people around them develop. That's why Dolph Ziggler has held that championship. It was to help Bron Breakker develop and help give him that extra cushion, which it looks like they both decided he no longer needed and decided that he needed again. So very confusing at times to work out what's actually supposed to be happening here. Going forwards, we have a question from Sean I'd like to bring to our attention, saying, I was surprised Mandy retained a stand and deliver. I figured she'd lose the belt and Toxic would get called up. If Cora doesn't end Mandy's reign, I can see Saray beating Mandy. Who do you think is the next women's champion in NXT?
Kaylee Ray.
Kaylee Ray. I have a lot of questions in mind about Kaylee Ray because I think she's more than ready. 1, to be called up. 2, to be competing with people like Ronda Rousey, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch. But with what you've just said there about Mandy Rose, despite the fact that we have Io Shirai, we have Dakota Kai, is Kaylee Ray still needed in NXT?
Yes, because there's something special about Kaylee Ray. And WWE has seen what happened with Toni Storm having limited time in NXT and then going straight to the main roster, and how that all worked out between her and Charlotte. On top of not just having Mandy Rose, you have 100 people seemingly coming in from the female side that need that veteran leadership and brought up. They just signed 6 or 7 more female talents, including former Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Roxy. With having somebody like who's already constantly on the show now, Fallon Henley. We just saw Tiffany Stratton.
We did.
There are so many young, talented women who need that nudge and that confident hand. That even if Kaylee Ray is at the top of the division, beating everybody, being there at the PC, being there for those talents and being able to help groom them and teach them is something invaluable that she has, especially with her record-breaking reign as NXT UK Women's Champion.
Completely agree. Justin says, how hard is it to have a plan? Why do they just book on the fly like they do? It depends on the situation. There will be factors that we're not aware of. I do have to question, again, quite possibly, if Dolph Ziggler may be carrying a knock or something that prevents him from working with someone like Volta. KJ says, I swear this Harlan guy reminds me of Michael Myers. I think that's sort of the intention as well. I think they're trying to lean into that sort of thing. Sean is just excited that Index is on screen, and indeed they are. They are wrestling at the moment. Well, Index is not, to be clear. Dexter Loomis is taking on, I want to say, Duke Hudson?
Duke Hudson, yes.
Duke Hudson, thank you. Simon is saying, hey, Tom, just dropping in to... Do you see Rhea turning heel on Live next week on Raw and joining the grand jury? I see either that happening or them teasing that because of the amount of people who've mentioned it. Of course, on Spoiler Warning, we did talk about Rhea Ripley, and then shortly afterwards, I saw reports that Rhea Ripley would be joining, so... Certainly, I think we were onto something there. Austin says, what Roman was teasing Friday, I'm guessing Drew comes out to be his next challenger. I don't believe so, not yet, though that is a possibility. When it comes to who's challenging him on the SmackDown side, I struggle to think of challengers. But hey, maybe it'll end up being Cody on both shows. Hector has got a question for you, Ed.
Okay.
What do you think of the redesigned NXT Women's title and the slight changes they made to the men's title, adding the NXT colours?
It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's great. I love that they're going away from the black and gold design. This is a new brand. There's slightly new championships, but they're not letting the colorful get in the way of making the title look good. Like, how easy would it have been to both titles be white straps with paint thrown all over them and make them god-awful ugly titles? No, they took the color scheme and they put it underneath the plate so that you get the colors and you see the colors and it makes it pop, but you still have that classic NXT X that dominates the title and that the colors are a secondary thing. I think the women's championship looks absolutely beautiful, and the men's title looks better having those colors on.
Brian Dalton says, is KO going to be feuding with Elias/Ezekiel? He will not be feuding with Elias, but Ezekiel will be a feud that he has going forwards. Elias we may see again at some point soon, but certainly he was buried quite a while ago, so maybe he'll get some sort of zombie Liu Kang thing going on. Who can tell? Austin Palmenter says, I was hearing that Bayley passed her tests. You may have heard that right here about a week ago, stating that Bayley did pass her tests in the lead up to WrestleMania. Not a week ago, it was Friday, wasn't it? It was Friday that I said that one. Bayley did pass her tests. We will be seeing her soon. I suspect because the WWE knew we were expecting returns on the Raw after Mania, they may have pushed a few back. Bayley, to my knowledge, was there, was at WrestleMania, but was not called to action as of yet. Justin says, I know I'm going to get hate for this, but to me, Kaylee Ray doesn't have the personality to work on the main roster. She's going to be Ember Moon 2.0, good worker with zero charisma. Now, personally, I very much disagree with that. Kaylee Ray, for me, has an aura about her which you don't actually find in too many. There is an element of stone cold killer in Kaylee Ray, which is especially baffling to me because having met her and interviewed her a few times, she is the nicest person in the world of wrestling. It is so confusing to have someone so positive. And Kaylee Ray's one of those. There are a few people in wrestling. The Miz is one of them as well. They always remember you. They always remember you. Kaylee Ray is one of those. That will carry her far to start with. But for me, the fact that there's such a sea change in her overall character, she carries herself with such confidence and such gravitas that I personally disagree there, Justin. Ed, your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't necessarily fully disagree with him. I can see where Justin's coming from with Kaylee Ray not having a lot of personality. But the Rage Room style stuff that they have going on in NXT right now, and the fact that no woman on the main roster really has a defined character except the ones that have been there for a while. You know, none of the news people really coming up really have a defined character. Like Doudrop doesn't have something super defined. Xia Li doesn't have anything defined.
I would say Shayna's struggling.
Yeah, Shayna, who's been there forever and has the submission magician, just isn't at the point where they have something defined. I think Kaylee Ray's wrestling ability can absolutely do her wonders, especially if they let her keep doing this whole Rage Room type of gimmick where she's wheeling a metal bat around and just breaking things backstage. That will get over and be fun for the beginning to get her on television, and then her wrestling will carry her the rest of the way. Plus, she can also cut a promo if necessary.
So we've just had a double countout. Dexter Lumis and Duke Hudson simply not being able to finish the match, and it really is confusing at times watching these four because it screams foursome, and I mean that in a faction sense, but it screams foursome. I definitely see that moment coming.
It screams foursome in a whole lot of ways, Tom.
A whole lot of ways.
In the faction sense.
Whole lot of ways. Sean says, why did you question it when Samoa Joe said he gave up the NXT title due to a positive COVID test? Now, that's a direct quote from Samoa Joe, so I didn't question it too far. He's a first-hand source, and I never question first-hand sources. What my concern was there was that I am yet to see any evidence that Samoa Joe was ever cleared to wrestle in NXT. That was my basis on that. Sean also says Duke Hudson was once known as Brendan Vink, which I did not remember. I did not remember that at all, but was it not Vink and Fawn, briefly, who came up to the main roster as a tag team? Shane Fawn, now Shane Haste, I believe it is, that he's wrestling up. I've seen him more on Smosh recently than actually wrestling, but to be fair, I've not been out looking for his matches.
They were under MVP, if I remember correctly.
I believe they were, yes. Simon says, do you see Io Shirai getting called up to SmackDown on Friday night alongside a returning Bayley, possibly feuding with Shayna, as she teased on her Instagram? Honestly, I don't. At this point, my default is that Io Shirai is never being called up. What do you reckon, Ed?
I just don't see what else you do with Io Shirai. Like, the reason why I say Kaylee Ray has so much to offer in terms of being able to help groom young talent is that she can speak their language and really help develop them. With the exception of Saray, I'm not sure Io can connect in the same way. And that's not to say something bad. It's just that there's a language barrier there. And as talented as Io Shirai is in the ring, if you're talking to Tiffany Stratton with Io Shirai, how much Japanese does Tiffany Stratton know? And how much can Io Shirai not fully communicate in English because she spent most of her career working in Japan and being an absolute star? So I see Io Shirai going up more than Kaylee Ray for that reason. But I just don't understand what else you do with Io Shirai. She's won a tag team tournament. She's been a multi-time women's champion. She's had all the viral moments, like putting the trash can on her head and jumping off the War Games cage. Unless you have her feud with Saray, there's really nothing left for her to do.
Yeah. Just before I ask a second question about that, Justin says, I hope I'm wrong about Kaylee Ray, but as you know, main roster fans are completely different than the NXT crowd. That is true, and I think you're approaching that in the right way, Justin. I hope you're wrong as well, but obviously, while in my opinion it's different, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to the main roster. Going back briefly to Io Shirai, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before I did. You've mentioned the language barrier, and this is something I want to talk about for two reasons. Firstly, Asuka received what chants during her time on the main roster? She received what chants, and she's quite good with her English at this point in time, though Shinsuke Nakamura often does translate for her in up, up, down, down videos, for example. So firstly, do you think the crowd may be one of the reasons that Io Shirai is not being called up, especially now that Stone Cold has returned and the what chant has come back in full force? But secondly, people in WWE right now, other than certain big names, are not very experienced at calling it in the ring. They have their matches produced, it's a lot more carefully done. Do you think it's possible that she hasn't been called up because there is a concern that she's not able to call it in the ring if need be as well? Is that language barrier that much of a problem?
No, because I think when you're dealing with the talent level that you have on the main roster, I think you can figure it out in the ring, and everybody's good enough to know what needs to happen when, and you'll be able to do it. It's harder when you're talking about young talents, and more importantly in NXT, with these recruits coming in, young talents who may not be professional wrestlers for very long before they come in. Tiffany Stratton being, an Olympic gymnast and a championship gymnast. People like Roxy, who are a former Ring of Honor world champion, her and Io Shirai can probably make it work in a match, calling it in the ring with no problem, because they both have enough, time spent in the ring. But what about an Ivy Nile, who's another? She came from the Titan Games with The Rock, and that's how she got on WWE's radar. Casey Catanzaro, she came from Ninja Warrior. Yeah, she's been with the company for 3 years, so they could probably figure it out, and they have. But, there's things like that. Whereas on the main roster, you're dealing with women who've been doing this for 5-10 years and know exactly what to do. And some of them spending time in Japan and being able to speak Japanese. Sasha Banks could probably call a match in the ring with Io Shirai or Asuka in Japanese if absolute need be.
That is a fair comment, actually. She does have a lot of experience in that regard. Austin says Samoa Joe versus Max Caster tomorrow. RIP to him. RIP indeed, anyone getting in the way of Samoa Joe. Hector says, with the earlier developments in the night, I could see Bron retaining due to Fabian Aichner possibly causing Gunther to lose. I think an internal battle within Imperium could be interesting TV. What do you guys think? Ed, take it away on that one.
It's interesting. The Fabian Aichner thing I didn't see coming. Imperium felt like this perfect force to just give a little bit of time in NXT just to make sure that Gunther was okay working in the States, and then sending them up as a well-oiled faction to the main roster. The idea of breaking them up had never crossed my mind, because I don't know what the value of Marcel Bartel or Fabian Aichner on their own is.
We are getting something of an update on that on screen as we speak. Megan says, do not break up Imperium ever. I agree. I think it's very possible this is a little bit of smoke and mirrors. And I kind of hope it is. Because this is a unit. Imperium could be one of the great factions. We are looking at a potential Shield level unit here. Now, I don't think each of the three men would be the level of the Shield individually, but I think as a unit, this faction would be extremely well received, extremely popular, and extremely successful. I personally would not break up Imperium. Ed, would you break up Imperium?
Not in a million years. Just beyond, like I said, even the mere fact of, I don't know what the value of the pieces by themselves are. Gunther has all the value in the world because he's super marketable and he's the guy who started it all. But Marcel Bartel and Fabian Aichner are unknown quantities when it comes to the WWE universe and the fan base in this company on their own. And I'm not sure what they have to offer, because like some of the things we talk about with the language barrier between some of the women, Bartel and Aichner still cut promos in either German and Italian from time to time to get their point across with the NXT universe. And so that would still be a problem on the main roster, even though they can speak perfect English.
They can. I've interviewed Imperium as a unit, and I've interviewed Bartel and Eichner separately from Volta. And honestly, I do feel there is immense talent there, but there is a bit of a barrier. I'm going to call it the Cesaro barrier, where someone in WWE management would look at that and think, oh, maybe they're not connecting, even though to a level they are. So I'm not sure how to go explaining that further, but I do feel separately, without Volta at the head, Imperium would sink a little faster than expected. Justin says, I could see WWE putting Asuka and Io as a team, just like Asuka and Kairi. Yep, I could definitely see that too. I don't necessarily want it to happen. I feel that's basically saying, okay, Japanese people over there and everyone else over here. However, there are legitimate reasons that would be a good idea as well. So in this one, I would happily eat crow, as it were. One thing I do want to speak about, I want to speak about the 4 women in the ring right now. 4 women who've been a key part of NXT 2.0, and I've got to say, I was just watching the entrance. Dakota Kai looks like she's having the time of her life right now. Now, obviously, Dakota Kai always looks like she's having the time of her life, even if she's beating the crap out of her former tag team partner in a tiny little cage. But still, you know I'm a fan, you know I've got a soft spot. And to be fair, with the development of all of these individuals, I would say that soft spot is starting to develop to everyone in the ring. Raquel Gonzalez seems more confident. She seems more secure, more familiar with how she's working at the moment than she has been before. Plus, we have some very talented people in Toxic Attraction as well. Talk to me about the development of these 4 people over the last few months. Starting, I feel, with Toxic Attraction. How do you feel they are developing, and where do you see them going? How far up do you see them going?
Gigi and JC have the ability to do whatever they need to do, but putting them with Mandy has given them a level of credibility because it's given them a direction to go in. 2 unknown, independent, I don't want to say unknown. Priscilla Kelly isn't unknown to anybody who watches independent wrestling. Gigi Dolan.
She certainly found ways to get attention.
Agreed. But at the same time, she wasn't a household name either.
No.
Like, people weren't like, oh, Priscilla Kelly is Gigi Dolan. We know who she is.
Like Butch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we all knew who Butch was. We didn't have to worry about that. But they've gotten it together, and they feel like they fit into this gimmick, especially on social media. At one point, they had a big NXT show. In the promo for the show, it was the Valentine's Day show. Mm-hmm. The opening package was literally Toxic Attraction having a girls' text chat where they were talking crap about the roster. And that was how they built the matches for the promo package that started the show. Like, talking about, oh, Carmelo, he's cute. He can get into our DMs. And then, other matches like, oh, that Tony D'Angelo guy, nobody cares about him. We got to get rid of him. All that fun stuff. So they fit into a hole. Raquel Gonzalez, they make her feel like she's got all of the attributes of a Charlotte Flair or a Rhea Ripley. Like, she does the entrance where she has a title on, over her bum, and she does the back thing. But she doesn't have the back muscles they think she has. And so it's just a little bit less than what they want it to be. They want to make her feel strong. But I feel like if they put her in the ring with a Bianca Belair or a Rhea Ripley or a Charlotte Flair, she's going to be weaker than any of them because she doesn't have the strength that they try to tell us that she has. But she's getting better every week in the ring. And then we get to Dakota Kai, who, as you said, has been having a ball. Since she lost to Raquel Gonzalez and she's been doing all that, she's gone a little crazy. Like, she's talking to herself. She has multiple personalities. Wendy Chu made the tag team with her by talking to one of her other personalities and basically lied about it. And it's like, no, you said it was fine. We're going to be okay. I talked to the other you, your friend. And Dakota's like, wait, what? But, she found that she can have friendship. Like, she was going up to every tag team, and that was in the Dusty Classics, both men and women's, and being like, no, you don't want to win this. It ruins people. It ruins friendships. It ruins everything because of what happened with her and Raquel after winning. And so it's given her this great character. And it's just fantastic to watch.
One final note I want to make on Toxic Attraction there. I feel there are a number of characters now who are reclaiming certain elements of femininity and womanhood, as it were. I'm not particularly experienced to speak on this because I'm a man myself and, checking my privilege here. But I do find it a pretty big positive that we can have characters now, and we have over the last few years had characters who aren't as flat and simplistic as they were previously. You look at female characters, and particularly to get away from the over-sexualized Attitude Era and the like, they simply stripped all that away. And it made them a lot more 2D. The fact that we can have characters who, like Toxic Attraction, are comfortable with themselves, comfortable in their bodies, and comfortable being open about stuff like that, such as you look with Index at the moment as well, I find that a positive because it's a real person. It's a whole rounded person, and that comes with a lot of different things, including a sexuality as well. We should not be ashamed of that, and hiding it away as we have done for the past few years has not been a positive. I say past few years, maybe the 10 years before, for example, 2017-18, the rise of Scarlet Bordeaux and the like as well.
I think it's been interesting because 2.0, like, I watch the show every week. 2.0 is a very horny show. Let's just cut through the crap. 2.0 is a horny show. I mean, you saw Duke and Persia basically writhing on each other.
The Fulton incoming.
Yep. So you saw all that. They had a segment on the pre-show for Stand and Deliver where they had a fashion contest for the two couples. I mean, you had the meme going around of Index on their honeymoon where Johnny Gargano is trapped in the closet and he's looking at Dexter Lumis, who's getting ready to have his honeymoon, and he pulls out, a string of condoms and gives Johnny Gargano, Indy's father, the thumbs up. Like, it's hysterical, but it's also... Then there's Mandy Rose and Nikita Lyons and Tiffany Stratton. And you've got these women who aren't afraid to be a thirst trap to an extent, aren't afraid of their bodies and aren't afraid to use it to get attention or to get attention that they want. I mean, you had Mandy Rose literally in a promo battle with Kaylee Ray, where Kaylee Ray says, "You accomplished nothing. You have zero accomplishments." And Mandy Rose proceeded to list off, "I've been on 3 magazine covers and 3 worldwide campaigns as part of WWE. I was in a part of a WrestleMania feud because of who I am and how I look." She's like, that's not an accomplishment just because I wasn't a champion. Like, they're baiting into these things, and it's good because you can have Charlotte Flair, who's all about being in the ring and being everything that it is. You can have Bianca Belair, who's about making everybody believe in yourself. You can have big time Bex, who's just about annoying the ever living piss out of me in everything that she does. And you can have Bayley and Sasha, who are all about in-ring talent and being funny and doing everything they want to do. And you can have these other girls who are about, I'm attractive and I'm beautiful, but I can also beat your ass and I can wrestle. And that's okay. The term diva shouldn't be a dirty word. Just because the Divas era was bad doesn't make the term diva a dirty word.
I feel like we have this conversation pretty much every time we cover NXT, and I feel it's worth having every time because it's that diversity of character. It's that well-roundedness, that 3D element. And I'm just very happy to know that in NXT, the characters that they're creating are interesting, unique, and well-rounded. Let's catch up with the chat a little bit. Brian Dalton says, any idea on who AJ Styles' backup is going to be against Edge, Priest, and potentially Rhea and Ciampa? Now, there haven't been many hints so far. There was obviously a backstage promo with Bron Breakker. Anyone you would like to see, Ed?
Finn Balor. I thought about it, and I talked to some of the people on Slack about it. But I definitely think that we're seeing for Payback or WrestleMania Backlash. The WrestleMania Backlash is the next one. I can see a tag team match between Finn Balor and AJ Styles versus Damian Priest and Edge as a no-brainer.
Would make sense to me, though Austin Theory may have something to say about it. Simon says, interesting fun NXT fact about Santos Escobar. He's trained Sasha and Naomi in luchador in-ring training a lot lately. I would imagine they're training each other, while Sasha learns quite a lot and is always looking to learn at least one new move per pay-per-view. That's the general rule. Sasha Banks looks to learn one new move per pay-per-view. It's very impressive. Santos Escobar will be learning from them as well, I guarantee you that. Sean says, wasn't the language barrier the problem Kevin Dunn had with Becky, or were those reports false? To my knowledge, those reports were false. I'm not aware of any particular issues that Kevin Dunn had with Becky Lynch. If there were, he wouldn't be the one to say them. His focus is mostly on the visual spectacle. And Justin says, I think EO isn't getting called up because there's no room. Like I've said in the past, it's just not enough spots on TV on the main roster. Now, I know, Ed, you disagree with that slightly. We've had this conversation. I personally disagree with that. I think particularly in the women's section, SmackDown has 10 women, Raw has 11, and there is 5 hours of programming between them. You can afford to get a few women on the card.
As something interesting, over International Women's Month, I made a point of keeping track of women's segments and things like that. For the majority of the month of March, NXT featured, now granted, they were in the midst of a women's tag team tournament during the time too. They featured on television in some form or fashion, whether it be a segment, a vignette, something, anything like that, 11 to 14 women per 2-hour show on average through the month of March. You're telling me that you can't find time for more talented women on Raw and SmackDown? Like, you can't convince me of that.
I believe on this show we've already seen 9. I want to say 9 women.
Yeah, we've seen Tiffany Stratton. We've seen these 4 women.
We've seen Lyons
Nikita
and
Lyons.
Somebody she was...
Mandy Rose.
Talking with Mandy Rose. And then, of course, Indy Loomis and...
Yeah, Persia Parada.
Thank you very much. So I think they're finding ways to make it work. I think main roster just needs to commit to it a little bit more. Megan says the future is female in all its forms, which I feel is just a better description of what I was going for earlier. We now see Wendy Chu as well, who's just popped up out of nowhere and gotten into Mandy Rose's way. That seems to be serving as a distraction for Dakota, but we'll see how that plays out. Sean says Gigi came into WWE in a team with Cora, if I remember correctly. Ed?
One more time.
Sean says Gigi came into WWE in a team with Cora, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think they were on a team for the Dusty Classic last year when they weren't being fully utilized and they didn't know what they had for them, but I believe they may have been on a team last year.
Stand and Deliver is starting to look like it was a waste of time. To be completely honest there, it's a little bit strange that Toxic Attraction now have 3 championship belts between them all over again, and Bron Breakker's result has not stuck either. So my question here is, what's going on? Like, what? What?
We're having, so me, Ashford, and Cody have a 3-person chat that we constantly use during these NXT shows.
Yeah, it keeps you prepared and researched and such.
So we know exactly what we're kind of, where we are on and whatnot. And as you were saying, Stand and Deliver was a waste of time. Ashford literally mentioned messages, are you kidding me?
There's a reason I'm a fan of Astrid's, let's just say that. I know that as a wrestling journalist, I'm expected to at least be able to confidently say, this is what's happening, that's what's happening. I have no idea what's going on. I have no clue. Which I both like and don't like. I actually quite like that wrestling can still surprise me, even though I know a lot about what goes on backstage. And quite often, I've got to admit, I do stick my fingers in my ears and go, la 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 la, when someone starts telling me what a match result's going to be. Now, admittedly, it's in DM, so you can't actually do that, but still. Hector says Dakota Kai is such a star. If they do plan on keeping her on NXT for the long term, I feel like she deserves at least one reign as NXT Women's Champion. She's putting the work for sure. I completely agree. I absolutely agree. I think she fully deserves it. And I think it's a surprise that it hasn't already happened. But when you are a bit more experienced in NXT, things tend to pass you by like that. There was a good moment when she could have been potential champion against Shayna Baszler early on, but I feel Rhea Ripley got the spot instead. Raquel Gonzalez got the spot after that. Mandy Rose got the spot after that. And for me, Cora Jade is being prepared for the spot after that. So Dakota Kai might miss out on her opportunity just by virtue of the chain continuing, as it were. Simon said...
I was going to say, when you think of it, like the lineage of NXT Women's Champions, and you look at the four horsewomen, like you have to remember, Becky is considered by many to be one of the better of the four horsewomen.
Yes.
Never won the Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss never won the NXT Women's Championship. There are so many talented women who, depending on when you fell into that division, that you just don't have the opportunity to win the title.
Very, very true. Very true. Simon says, what did Ed make of Priscilla Kelly's AEW run and matches? Did you see those, Ed?
I did not. I didn't even know that Gigi Dolan was in AEW.
She was in AEW as Priscilla Kelly moderately briefly. There were personal issues which prevented her from continuing, from best I understand it. I won't go into any detail. It is ultimately up to her what she wants to share on that one. But I do know that when she left, the WWE were very, very happy to snatch her up, knowing the potential that they had. Justin says, to be clear about my comment, I'm saying what WWE main roster has a history with. I would welcome as many talented women as possible, but WWE main roster don't have a history of doing it. Just to be clear, Justin, you are in an environment where you will not be judged for your comments there, to be completely blunt. The WWE do have a history of not giving women enough opportunities, not featuring enough women. What we are saying is that we should be challenging them to do more, but even though people actively are challenging them to do more, they aren't changing their habits. That is true, and that is a fair comment, and you are entitled to your opinion in that regard. Megan is listing the women that we have seen so far. So it's Mandy, Gigi, JC, Lash Legend, Nikita, Wendy, Dakota, Raquel, Indy, Persia, and Tiffany. There's 11. Not counting Wendy Chu, who's been added to that, there's 12. And yes, we haven't seen Cora or Io so far.
So that's 11 or 12 in an hour and 10 minutes.
Yep.
It's not hard.
Sean says Dakota with another short reign. You're not wrong there. Champion for what, 2 days? Megan corrected me there. 3 days. What a massive difference. Justin says Dakota and Raquel coming up on the Raw after WrestleMania. I'd love it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think Dakota Kai is main roster ready. I think she's been main roster ready since the day before she signed for NXT, having followed her career as Evie way back when. And I think she's perfect for the main roster. I would be getting her involved in basically everything, but what can I say? That's just me. Megan says if Alexa had won the NXT Championship, she would be a Grand Slam champion by now. I feel a little bit too much focus is being put on Grand Slam at the moment. Only a small amount of people should be Grand Slam champions. I think the fact that Alexa and Becky are not Grand Slam champions only makes it mean that little bit more. And Sean says Cora was in AEW a couple of times as her Indies character in tryout matches. I was not aware of that, but to be fair, I think everyone is going through AEW at the moment. Everyone is getting tryout matches on Dark and Dark Elevation. Everyone's getting an opportunity to shine. So it's no surprise to me that WWE are signing people who may have appeared previously in AEW. Just felt the need to catch up on the chat there so that we didn't fall too far behind.
No, that's absolutely what we need to do. I just don't see the chat now. I'm used to seeing the chat with my StreamYard. I don't have my StreamYard.
I am definitely thinking about going back to StreamYard, at least briefly, going forward. I don't know how people felt about that, but I feel it's a very good piece of kit. And honestly, I'm very happy using it. Also, it means I can get a few more people logging in. As regards Team Colohue in the future, it could be very useful. We could, for example, have a quiz master or quiz mistress, a quiz queen, potentially, They're purely on audio, running a quiz with several people. You can run something like that on StreamYard. And I feel as we go towards Team Colohue being formalised with the stats, with the analysis, with the good high-quality journalism that many people here actually offer without realising what they're doing, I think StreamYard could be very beneficial. So I may be returning to that going forwards. Also means I can sort of flick through quite a few different things at once, though it does have its limitations as well.
This is true.
What I will say, just briefly while I have the opportunity, if you are currently watching on Twitch, please do consider hitting that follow button. It means you'll get a notification every time we go live in future. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. That little thumbs up can make a massive difference. One question I do want to ask, Ed. When you're hosting NXT over on Love Wrestling CA, I know that at the moment you guys are Twitch only.
Yes.
Are there any plans to return to dual streaming in the near future that you know of?
I don't know. We are right now currently doing similar to what you did. We are in the Sports Accelerator program and taking full advantage of that by moving all of our live content over to Twitch.
Much as I did.
I agree. And I think that might be the way to go, because while we like having both, it's nice to have one platform, especially not having to schedule shows. Because with YouTube, they like you to tell us when we're going to go live.
Yeah.
Whereas Twitch, they're like, just go whenever. We don't care. I
Twitch,
also don't have to make thumbnails if I'm not on YouTube.
Twitch is a lot more casual. I have no idea how to make thumbnails. I've never made a thumbnail, to be blunt. I may need to look into that at some point in future, put some text on the thumbnails, but that may be something that I can get someone else to do, to be completely blunt. This is the advantage of having multiple people working with you in the near future. But I just wanted to check in on that, because obviously, as you're here with the show co-hosting with me, you will be hosting NXT. That's T with TEA, straight after NXT tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
We have a quick edition of Power Out, as Ella J, the co-host for Power Out, is on her way back from Dallas after having a fantastic WrestleMania weekend, indulging all of her wildest fantasies, including meeting her idol Shawn Michaels, among other things. So while she is still on her way back, she did. For a long time, it seems like. But while she's on her way back, Zach is going to be doing a quick power out before we go live.
So roughly what time are you going to be going live?
I would imagine about 5 to 10 minutes after the overrun goes, because Zach will be starting with the overrun as it goes.
Cool. And where can they find you if they want to check that out?
That will be on twitch.tv/lovewrestlingca.
Thank you very kindly. Let's see. So we've just had Tony D'Angelo in the ring, celebrating his win over Ciampa with a little wine.
Yes.
Just a little red wine. And a picture of, I want to say, himself.
Yes.
That's
with his friend AJ Galante.
That's interesting. Oh, he's the Don now. The Don.
Yes.
Now, I'm interested to see where he goes next. Having picked up the victory over Tommaso Ciampa, it's not like Ciampa's going to be getting his revenge anytime soon. He's on Raw full time now. So what do you think is next for Tony D'Angelo?
I'm not sure. I could see Carmelo Hayes. I could see Cameron Grimes. It has to be a babyface of some type. So I feel like we're heading in that Solo Sikoa, Cameron Grimes, Carmelo Hayes group of talent, because I don't think he's ready to move up to the Bron Breakers of the world just yet.
I would agree with that. Justin Stevens says Cena isn't a Grand Slam champ. He is not, and that does make it feel a little bit more special. Sean says Cora was Elena Black in her tryouts. That's the one, thank you. She lost a singles and tag team match to Brandy Rhodes. Megan says if there's nothing for her in the near future on Raw or SmackDown, I don't see any problem with Alexa having a few months in NXT like Dolph, Finn and Mandy. That would certainly be very beneficial to NXT, as Alexa Bliss is a proven draw. So I would definitely be very excited to see what she could do in NXT. Would you have more people from the main roster involved, Ed, or would you like to see a focus on the talent that's already there?
I don't mind having the main roster talent, but I would want to limit it to people who need it. Somebody I'd bring down, because like they brought AJ down, and that was great because it brought Grayson that much higher. Mm-hmm. And Dolph Ziggler the same way. He's a name, but he's not really doing anything. The person I'd bring would be Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, people like that, people on the lower end of the card who can who have a name value, who can, you gotta remember NXT has an older fan base. The 50+ fan base is widely known to be a huge benefit for the NXT crowd. Bringing in somebody like a Shelton Benjamin wouldn't be bad because it brings back that vintage vibes, and they can have fantastic matches with any of these people.
I would love to see calm down. I would love to see a brief run for someone such as Shinsuke Nakamura. Right now might not have anything on. Certainly slightly lower down you've got your Apollo Crews who could benefit. Maybe a little bit from the 24/7. I wouldn't focus. But I think The Miz coming down for a month or so could be hugely beneficial. Something like that. He's happy to take the loss. He's happy to hype them up. And he would definitely be making stars wherever he goes. So I think The Miz would be a good choice. But I'm happy to see, as you say, people dropping in and dropping out, as it were, as well. Simon is asking you a question.
Yes.
What does Ed think LA Knight is... does Ed think LA Knight is getting called up to the main roster? And what did he think of Eli Drake's TNA Impact run a few years ago?
I think LA Knight is absolutely getting called up. He hasn't won anything of significance in his entire time at NXT. It has been there to help build because they knew what they had, but they wanted to see it in action. But from the get-go, we knew he wasn't long for the NXT world, like a Kevin Owens, like people like that, who came in, spent a couple months, and then went to the main roster. Eli Drake was fantastic. He worked with people like Drew Galloway. He worked like people like Tonga Loa, if in New Japan when he was Hunico back in TNA days. He worked with people like Bobby Lashley. He knows these guys and he can work with them. And he has that name value and that ability to talk that you can put him on either the same show as The Miz or a different show as The Miz. And you can have two similar characters, but one that fans can cheer and one that fans can boo. Because LA Knight has a way of bringing the people in while also pushing them away at the same time.
It is a talent, isn't it? I love people who can do that. I've mentioned The Miz there, and that's another one who can as well. Hector says, I'm just glad we are where we are when it comes to women's wrestling. We went bra and panties matches and the King Screaming Puppies to now having an all-women pay-per-view and women main eventing Mania. So glad to see it. I agree. I absolutely do. We are at a point now, as much as anything backstage, where if Jerry Lawler steps out of line on commentary, I promise you, he will get ripped apart by your Becky Lynch's, by your Charlotte Flairs, by your Ronda Rouseys, some of them with words, some of them physically. And I feel the talent now know that the office has their back in things like that. And that, for me, is one of the main differences. Because previously, Jerry Lawler was protected from on high by the Prince of Darkness himself. Nowadays, management has the talent's best interests at heart, or at least to some degree, and actually cares enough to say, that's not okay. Larry Bongo says, glad you mentioned quizzes. Got a Twitter quiz to write for tomorrow. Interesting, Larry. I hope it's a fun one. Justin says, since Triple H retired last week, what is Ed's favourite Triple H match? Mine is Triple H versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at No Way Out 01, which was the 3 Stages of Hell. Ed, talk me through your favourite memories of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Triple H.
So I have 2 favorite Triple H's. One I was there for and got to see it the night he lost the Intercontinental title to Rocky Maivia in Lowell, Massachusetts on a Raw Thursday.
Yeah, I remember
that. It was Rocky's first title win. I was able to run up and touch Rocky on the shoulder.
Oh.
It was a fun little time, and I really enjoyed that DX era of that right before the pre-DX era of Triple H.
Whatever happened to Rocky Maivia?
I don't know. I mean, he got hurt. People started chanting "Die Rocky, die."
Yeah, promising career, a bit overpushed.
Yeah. But, I mean, if I'm going to go with Triple H in my favorite match, it's hard not to go end of an era. Like, that's 3 of my favorite wrestlers of all time, all in one spot. So, with my favorite being Shawn Michaels. So, it's hard not to say end of an era. That match is literally perfect. I don't think I can find a fault in that match.
Simon, what I'm going to say in response to what you are saying is that the comments you are making are in reference to something which I'm not going to discuss here, and neither is Ed. These are obviously very personal situations for individual wrestlers. And when it comes to the situation at hand, legally, we all need to be very careful what we say and who we side with, vocally and otherwise. So what I would suggest, Simon, is we all accept that we don't know what's going on and leave it to people who actually do to sort it out. That is all I will say as regards that. Sean says, does Nakamura step up to Roman now since Boogs is gone for a while? I think now would be the perfect opportunity for Nakamura to step up, but I'm confident Nakamura would step up and be immediately knocked back down again.
Did Nakamura ever get that title match?
Nope.
The one that they put Ralph Pearson in front of?
He did not get that title opportunity. That was the beginning of his face turn, the beginning of the Boogs addition to him. And while I feel he has more chance of winning if Boogs is in his corner and Boogs is expected to be out for the majority of the next year, I think just throwing him into a match which he's going to lose anyway, now would be the perfect time to have that moment for him. Megan says,
since you have 9 months of things that you don't have any plans for. Because do you think that that match was changed on the fly with Rick Boogs getting hurt? Because I do.
The finish, yes. The result, no.
Okay.
I don't believe they were going to win the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. I don't know if they could have called that on the fly as immediately, but who knows on that one. Obviously, it's a possibility. I'm not entirely sure, but I know for a fact that the finish was changed.
Okay.
Megan says, Jerry will be Jerry, and while the women would probably kick his ass if he oversteps, he'd probably like it at the same time.
She's not wrong.
I hope I conveyed the tone that you're going for there, Megan, because certainly I'm annoyed at how right you are. Jerry Lawler. Even as a kid, I wasn't a fan. We have Lash Legend and Nikita Lyons in the ring. Ed, he's struggling to breathe at the moment. Bless him. He's glued, literally glued.
Like Tom knows, I'm normally focusing on the camera and on the picture that's in front of me. I'm looking at my TV, which is up here in the corner.
Yep. It's okay. It's a watch along. We made I'm sure you've all forgotten that it's a watch along, to be blunt, because we rarely actually talk about what's going on screen. We are a podcast, guys. We are full on a podcast that just has our faces in it. That's the style that we have here. I need to give up saying watch party, as it were. But as much as anything, I do feel that every now and then there are going to be times when you're both sort of staring at a screen a little bit. That does happen, unfortunately. It's part of the deal. And off camera, before we started, Ed and I were having a quick conversation, and I was saying that I really am quite enjoying the fact that at the moment, the watch parties that we're having, I'm more comfortable having a little bit of quiet in there. One of the biggest pieces of advice that you always get when it comes to streaming is always be talking. Never let it go silent. Always be giving people something to engage with. And for a long time, I lived and died by that rule. But lately, I've been a lot more relaxed. Just a lot more relaxed as things have calmed down in my personal life. And it means that at a watch along, sometimes you can just watch along. You can just watch what's happening. Because everyone watching is also watching something else. And I'm absolutely fine with that. Ed, are there any plans for more watch-alongs in your future?
Yeah, I think NXT is going to be bouncing between post-show content and watch-alongs. We really enjoyed doing the watch-along for Stand and Deliver, and we've all felt like that might be something that we continue to do in the future. So there might be an occasional watch-along from here and there from NXT as we go forward.
And would that be with Love Wrestling or your own channel?
That would be with Love Wrestling for now.
Once again, twitch.tv/Love Wrestling CA. Tell me a bit about your experience as a watch-along for Stand and Deliver. Have you had many watch-alongs before that aren't our podcast style?
No, I've never done a watch-along other than the ones that I've done with you until the Stand and Deliver show. And that was fun with getting to be on there and have live reactions with Astrid and Cody, like verbally. Because, like I said, we have our Slack chat like we're using now, where we're literally having the watch along where we're messaging each other back and forth with everything going on, and Astrid telling me to breathe and things like that. And but going ahead and being able to get our thoughts out and be able to react live in time with the things that are going on, as opposed to having 2 hours to think about it and wait.
Completely understand. I'm seeing quite a lot of different watch-alongs I'm dipping into, seeing what I can learn and seeing what advice I can possibly give. I haven't watched yours on NXT just yet because, let's face it, I've barely even slept over the past weekend. But I promise you I will be doing so, and if there's any help I can give, you know full well that I'll be giving it.
Absolutely. I think it's funny. We talked about this during the pre-show, and since we're talking about some of the pre-show stuff, I want to bring this one up.
Go for it.
Me and Tom talk pretty much every day. We have a chit-chat on Twitter pretty much every day. These shows are literally podcasts because we never think to just have a chat like this without the cameras rolling.
Yeah, we do need to work on that. We absolutely do, because I always have great fun doing it. At some point, maybe Team Colohue will just have to feature a good old-fashioned podcast.
I mean, crazier things have happened.
Crazy things have happened. And with the success that we're seeing recently on Twitch and on YouTube, I want to be clear, Team Colohue is in the offing. I want to get to a certain amount, and then I have a dedicated list of people that I want to have involved. So we will be speaking with people directly about what they can bring to the table, as it were, what they want to bring to the table and how they want to be involved going forward. So you've definitely got that to look forward to as we work out what we're going to be doing.
That looks great, but the kick didn't look so good.
To be blunt, from what I saw of that match, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. Hector says, oh snap, Dakota versus Mandy could be great. They're testing me by teasing Dakota in the title picture, just knowing she won't win. I would love it if she would, but yes, unfortunately, it seems very, very unlikely. Megan says, of all people, why Jerry? Wade and Vic are right there, why not Booker? As regards people joining the Raw commentary team, I'm honestly not sure. I would just put Pat McAfee on both nights personally, but I don't know if that's actually possible given his YouTube show. Sean is asking about certain Triple H matches. So, Ed, we're going to do a lightning round here. Your thoughts on these Triple H matches? Triple H versus Brock, WrestleMania 29.
Really, really good. Really fun.
Triple H versus Roman, WrestleMania 32.
Not as fun.
Triple H versus Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30.
Absolute gold.
That is a lightning round. And hopefully, if anyone wants a future lightning round, we can do lightning round content. Just give me a list of things to go for, and I will quiz Ed for his immediate reactions and see what we get, because why the hell not? Ross Menzies says Dakota going after Mandy by the looks of it, which is good. I like that. I like that we've got a new challenger immediately, and I'm excited to see what that match brings, because we've spoken about Mandy Rose maybe not being in a position to work with people who are still quite green. Dakota Kai ain't green. Megan says, oh no, Nikita has new gear and it's already busting open. Now I'm going to be blunt here, Megan. Is that oh no genuine? Because I know you.
It's not for me.
And we know Ed, so I just wanted to check on that one. Justin says, I think Mania Night 1 match order was perfect. I'm not a fan of huge matches opening the show or being third or fourth. Boxing or UFC don't have double main events with one of them opening. I was glad Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair didn't open the show either, and I do think the pacing of the show was fantastic. Starting out with a match that maybe we're not that enthused about, but getting further and further along as we go. One thing I do want to point out is that I just saw a sign in the crowd saying Will Smith slaps harder than Gunter. Can I just say that is going to be proven wrong very shortly, just so you know.
But it's very topical. You know. Very topical.
It is very topical. Will Smith, what the hell?
There's just so much going on with this. It's just so, like, we just saw a segment with two mob bosses talking to each other. And I say mob bosses because the man's name is literally Santos Escobar, which means he's a take off of Pedro Escobar.
Yep. And he's fantastic.
Fantastic.
I haven't asked as of yet, but it seems the perfect time. Ed, what did you make of WrestleMania?
I liked WrestleMania. I thought it was very fun. It wasn't for the hardcore fans, and this year was more than others. Wasn't about the in-ring wrestling quality. It was about a moment or having fun or things happening. Like, yes, we had matches like Bianca and Becky. God, I hate saying nice things about Becky Lynch.
I know, but it was good, right?
But that match was really, really good. It wasn't my favorite, but it was really, really good. We had Seth and Cody, which was a masterful match. Laid out really, really well. The two guys absolutely flowed together. That moment of him coming down. And I do love the idea of people being like, WWE made Cody look bigger. It's literally the exact same presentation. You want to know the one difference? Cody isn't trying to be a face when he's a heel right now. They're giving him face things to say to be a baby face, as opposed to him being Homelander from HBO's The Boys. By the way, we're not sponsored by HBO.
But if they want to get in touch, I'd be open to that. I can rock a Homelander tee. It's a great character. It's a fantastic character.
Yeah, but he's not a babyface.
No, no, he's not.
Cody didn't understand that in AEW, and that's why people railed against Cody Rhodes.
Very true. Sean says, I think it was good that Ronda versus Charlotte wasn't the main event of night one. I completely agree. If we'd known ahead of time that Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to wrestle, that makes perfect sense as the main event of night one. Also, Kevin Owens can say, I main evented night one of WrestleMania. Pretty good position to be in. Simon says, I would be so happy for Dakota Kai if she could at the very least have one run with the NXT Women's title. Hopefully. She deserves it so much. If we are building towards Dakota Kai versus Mandy Rose, do you think Dakota Kai has a chance of becoming champion now?
Yes. She absolutely has a chance. I mean, it's Mandy Rose. She's not an untouchable champion. The problem is with everybody who challenges Mandy Rose, you're in a numbers game. Right now, Dakota Kai has backup. So, yeah, she could win because she has backup and can make it an even playing field. I don't foresee her being there long. So for me, it seems like a bit of a waste because I also don't see Mandy going up. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, Toxic Attraction is headed up right away. And I'm like, no, they can anchor this women's division as your top heels for the foreseeable future. Especially if you want to have women's NXT tag team championships, you kind of need tag teams.
You do.
And for that, you need Gigi Dolan and JC Jane.
You do. The main roster still hasn't learned that one. So before we get into our main event and NXT, Ed, lightning round. Justin has given us a new lightning round. Says, since I'm a huge Bliss fan, I'll ask Ed to rank these three Alexas. 2014 NXT style glittery Alexa. The Goddess Alexa Bliss, 17 to 19. Playground Firefly Funhouse Bliss. Rank them best to worst.
This is going to be divisive, but I am going to go NXT Alexa Bliss,
Ooh.
the Goddess Alexa Bliss, and then the Playground Alexa Bliss.
Interesting.
I loved Pixie Princess Alexa Bliss as she turned into the Freddy Krueger, Murphy and Buddy Murphy and
Blake.
What was Blake and Murphy. I loved that version of Alexa Bliss. That NXT version of Alexa Bliss is absolutely fantastic. Underrated because she got so much better as she went on.
I would agree that she got a lot better as she went on, but I don't think she was a finished article until later. Now, I have limited experience of Alexa Bliss in NXT. I have gone back and watched some of it, but not too much. For me, the Goddess still takes top position, but I don't hate the current iteration of Bliss. I don't either. I liked that it was different. I liked that it was diverse. I liked that nobody else was doing anything like it. Admittedly, there were some close iterations. Rosemary, for example, they was quite close there. But ultimately for me, Alexa Bliss, as long as she has a microphone, I'm in. I'm all in. NXT has just announced that next week we will see Mandy Rose taking on Dakota Kai. I don't think we're going to get championship changes this constantly, but I'll be interested to see where we go. Also,
3 title changes next week. What's the point of your show?
It's a good question, isn't it?
Our entire show is going to be literally, what was the point?
Absolutely. Stand and deliver. What was the point? You might as well not have done it.
You had the biggest crowd for an NXT show since the TakeOver era and the pandemics. And you've literally reversed 2 of the big decisions that you made, potentially a third.
Yep.
And next week you could change both 4 and 5.
Yep.
You could literally undo every... I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be... What in the blue hell is going on?
NXT 3.0 incoming. It's all right. We'll start a report right now. We'll just start writing it. NXT 3.0 on the way. We'll get it floated to all the dirt sheets. They'll pick it up because you know how they work. They'll love it. They'll love it. NXT 3.0. You heard it here first because nobody else is saying it for a reason. It's garbage. But we are where we are on that one. I still love how many people I've seen stating that Roman Reigns popped his shoulder back in and then finished the match at the main event of WrestleMania. I wonder sometimes if people actually watch the matches they're talking about.
I do love how people now understand that, that this is a shoulder,
Yep.
and this is the bicep and the pec and the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And they're different. And if this is out, it's going to look different than if this is injured.
Yeah. I made my report on that one on Monday. It's, it hasn't been floated around, but certainly the report that Roman isn't injured has been floating around since. KJ says, I think Dakota may win because someone has to beat her. That's true. Someone does have to beat Mandy Rose eventually, and Dakota could also be an anchor of the women's division. Simon says, Sasha and Naomi yesterday on Raw Talk mentioned coming down to NXT very soon. Toxic Attraction versus Sasha and Naomi could be a lot of fun. I'll definitely say that. Justin is asking us a question.
Yes.
Favorite championship design ever?
The Winged Eagle. I grew up on it. It is my favorite championship belt ever. It will always be my favorite championship belt ever. Followed closely by the NXT UK Men's Championship.
There is no question in my mind. The Winged Eagle. Absolutely. It was a beautiful championship. It looked fantastic on Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Not so much on Steve Austin, and I get why they made that change. But it really did show where we were at the time. It wasn't the championship of a Hulk Hogan. It didn't work in that regard. But when it was on the smaller, more technically gifted guys, it was beautiful. It was a work of art. It wasn't too busy. It wasn't too self-obsessed. The current championships are so vain. They are so vain. For me, that was the one. Absolutely.
The other thing I'll say about it is, have you seen the picture with Roman Reigns holding the Winged Eagle?
Yes, I have.
That is such a beautiful photo of like Roman Reigns holding that vintage championship belt.
I don't know your preferences, Ed, and ultimately you don't have to share this, but Roman Reigns is a beautiful man, no?
Oh, absolutely.
Good man. Just all I wanted. Megan says it's almost like Triple H has gone back to the office for something, seen what's happening in NXT, gone, what in the fresh hell is this? And went, nope. So now we have this while the bosses argue in the back. Like he just went in for like a notebook or something small and all hell broke loose. I would love it if that is exactly what happened. Triple H came back for Stand and Deliver, halfway through, saw the card and was like, oh, this ain't gonna work.
I'll have to fix this on Tuesday.
and in fact, Monday.
Like, screw it, Monday. But like, there was a funny thing. Like when on Saturday and Sunday, I saw a meme floating around of LeBron James yelling at one of his teammates, and somebody put it with the caption: Triple H asking Shawn Michaels why NXT has gotten so horny since he's been gone.
Because it's Shawn Michaels. He is the patron saint of horniness.
It really is.
Speaking
of that Winged Eagle belt, there's a photo of that.
Let's not encourage people to Google that, but let's state that Google is your friend, just so you know. Just so you know.
It's an absolute... Tay and Sammy did the exact same pose.
They did.
As a couple with the belt a couple of weeks ago.
And I would not be...
It was fantastic.
I'm not going to encourage people to go and watch porn, but it's basically porn, let's be honest.
I mean, it was... Sean's was literally for Playgirl.
Yes, it was. And who knows what else you might find if you go to a site hosting that. But what I will say is that Shawn Michaels knew how to weaponize horniness. He did. I look at New Japan, Kota Ibushi. They know how to weaponize horniness. There are ways to go about this.
Look at Stardom.
Stardom, absolutely.
What is it, the Cinderella tournament? Where I think that all the beautiful out dresses and things like that, they have like a pageant as part of the tournament?
I believe Dakota Kai was part of that at some point.
I would imagine. She was in Stardom.
She was in Stardom. But it's one of those things where it's... You enjoying Braun Breaker there?
That was a nice spear. Gunther's a big dude, and he just went right through him.
It's, I feel... Oh, that lift did not quite work out. I feel it is definitely worth saying that horniness is a weapon in your arsenal in any TV show. There's a reason that almost all films have an opportunity to involve sex scenes and the like. Sex sells. And I don't think wrestling should shy away from that. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with looking at Drew McIntyre as he comes down to the ring and saying, hey, that is a good-looking man. Ultimately, any way they can get you watching is fine. And it always annoys me when I see on social media, oh, you're only watching because of beautiful men. If that's why you're watching, you have a great damn time. You enjoy yourself. Because there are some beautiful men.
You have men in spandex and you're not supposed... Like, people aren't supposed to look at them?
Yeah.
You have women in outfits and you're not supposed... Like, there's one thing about doing what they did in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era where they mistreated women's talents in a sexual nature.
Yeah, and limited them to only sexual.
Versus going ahead and uplifting them in a wrestling match while letting them portray themselves in any way they see fit.
Yes.
Whether it be Eva Marie thinking that she's a model and, you know, everything that goes along with her. Dewdrop thinking that she's absolutely fantastic and beautiful because she is.
She is.
Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan and the submissive dominant relationship that was WrestleMania Night 1 or Night 2.
Gonna go ahead and hashtag no comment on that one.
Why? What? That was absolutely beautiful.
Reasons.
Oh yeah. I'm not in a relationship. I forgot about that.
Oh no, that's nothing to do with it.
Oh, that's not the reason? Okay.
No, I just I'm trying to remain professional and unbiased.
You remain professional. I'm not.
That's fair. I mean, we have a balancing act here. I think a large part of that though is the fact that nowadays it's not. For example, Sable was talking about the Attitude Era. Let's mention Sable because recently for PW Torch I did a review with Frank Pettiani on WrestleMania 15, and it was a fact that at the time Sable was, oh, she's sexy. Okay, can she wrestle? She's sexy. Okay, can she talk? She's sexy. Okay, I want anything else. Nowadays we don't have that. I can say with all honesty, Becky Lynch coming down to the ring at WrestleMania, she looked staggering. She looked breathtaking. She can also kick your damn ass. She also has all of that personality and character. She is a person, a well-rounded person, whereas Attitude Era, it was just a pin-up. Ugh. We do talk about that one a lot. Megan says their beauty and their grace and they'll punch you in the face. And that can also be true of the men. Shawn Michaels understands that. Shawn Michaels always did. And I feel that in many ways, he's helping by adding that to it. Camonte Jackson says at some point, Toxic Attraction has to lose the gold. Who should take the titles off of them? Ed?
I don't know if I guess Casey and KC would be a good chat for the women's division. They've really earned a chance to try to run with those women's tag team championships, so I wouldn't mind seeing that. As for Mandy Rose, I mean, there's a bunch of people. I think Kaylee Ray is the best option because I think that her having a quick run at the top of the NXT women's division and then going back down and facing some of those developing women's talents in feuds and dropping a couple matches, kind of like an AJ Styles or a Finn Balor has been doing lately with some of these other talents. Unlike what Edge does, which is wrestle with guys he wants to and make sure he wins.
I have many things to say about that. Simon has given us a lightning round. Now, Simon, I'm going to edit this lightning round ever so slightly. You're asking us to rank 5 things. We don't have too long, and it'll be very finicky, even just remembering all 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 out for Ed to rank. So, 3 matches, Ed. Mm-hmm. It's Simon, so you know who's going to be the focal point of it.
First, it's going to be Bayley, right?
Yes, actually. Firstly, Sasha versus Bayley at TakeOver Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. Sasha versus Bayley, the Iron Woman match. Mm-hmm. Sasha versus Bayley, Hell in a Cell. Now, there are others there, but I'm just going to take those 3 for now, Simon, just to expedite the process, make it a lightning round. Rank those 3. TakeOver Brooklyn, Iron Woman match, Hell in a Cell, Sasha versus Bayley.
Iron Woman match, TakeOver Brooklyn, Hell in a Cell.
Fair enough. Hell in a Cell for me was not the strongest of their feud by any mark. I think, honestly, of the Hell in a Cell matches that Sasha has had, and she's had them with all 3 horsewomen, I would put the one with Becky at the top. I put the one with Charlotte at the bottom, and the one with Bayley in the middle. If we're going purely Hell in a Cell, Sasha matches, who was best, who was worst?
One more time?
The Hell in a Cell matches, Sasha versus Charlotte, Sasha versus Becky, Sasha versus Bayley.
Sasha versus Becky, Sasha versus Bayley, Sasha versus Charlotte. I was there live for Sasha versus Charlotte. The table didn't break. They were literally... The match started as we were getting ready for last trains to start coming, and we were like, I had to make a choice of, do I go home tonight, or do I watch Sasha versus Charlotte in its entirety? I actually got up out of my seat and started to slowly back up rows to watch that Hell in the Cell match.
It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It was the first women's main event, so it was historic, but the fact that Sasha could not manage to go through a table, just because of the tables, because of the way she was, whatever the reason was, it was not great. It was not.
But I mean, with the Iron Woman match, the reason why that one gets so much love for me is because it takes a special woman to make a little girl cry on purpose in the front row of a crowd. Like, that moment is indelibly etched. And as great as the match is, and it's probably a better match at TakeOver in Brooklyn, that moment in that Iron Man match just lives beyond anything that Sasha will have. It may be the best Sasha match that she's ever had come when it's all said and done, no matter what she does for the rest of her career.
Hector says, I like Bron being the underdog in this match, regardless of what happens. It's going to help his career going forward. He is working from underneath on this one. I did just want to briefly bring it back to watch along just as we catch up. Camonte says, as regards taking championships away from Toxic Attraction, I would say Saray or Roxy. That could be a while yet for both of them, I will say that. Megan says, give Kaylee Ray the belt for a while. Then when she goes up to the main roster, she can feud with Rhea, as they both held the NXT and NXT UK titles. So it can be, I did what you did, I did it better, and now I'm here to do the same again. Nice starter feud in my book. And Megan, I agree with that, and I think that's very much something that Kaylee Ray's current character would do as well. Mm-hmm. Sean has another ranking for you. I don't think I can necessarily call these lightning rounds, Ed, but we're learning about you today, and let's see. Now, Sean is an Alexa Bliss fan, so it's Alexa Bliss matches. It's Alexa versus Sasha at SummerSlam, Alexa versus Charlotte at Survivor Series, and Alexa versus Bayley at Payback. Now, I believe Payback was indeed
that's the kendo stick,
stick on a pole.
Okay, that was at the bottom.
I think that's
the next one is the Charlotte. The next one is the Charlotte match, and then it's the Sasha match, because that's the first match I remember where Alexa did the arm thing that makes me want to puke.
She did do that during the, I believe, the SummerSlam match. It's not the first time she did it. She did it on a SmackDown during her feud with Becky, but certainly it stands out for that. This was, of course, right after Alexa versus Sasha at Great Balls of Fire, and I do feel, personally, I was more impressed with Sasha and Alexa at Great Balls of Fire, but I think that's just because I loved Great Balls of Fire.
It's an underrated show.
Such a good show.
It has a crappy name, but other than the ambulance thing where you have people trying to literally physically kill people with a vehicular homicide.
Yeah, when Roman tried to murder Braun.
Other than that minor vehicular homicide that, you know. By the way, wrestling is so great. Like, you can literally try to kill people, but it's like, it's picking on a guy. It's like, no, I got a restraining order. You can't pick on me. The dude tried to kill another dude and nothing happened.
Oh, we have actually been a little bit corrected. Sean says Alexa versus Bayley Extreme Rules was the kendo match. Payback was when Alexa just came up and beat Bayley for the championship.
Oh. It's... Sorry, it's probably still at the bottom.
It's probably still at the bottom for me as well. Bron Breakker has defeated Walter clean to retain the NXT championship. Maybe Imperium are going up. Maybe that's the more likely scenario here, because Bron Breakker looks like he may be champion for a while yet. But
they tried to break them. Like, I still don't understand why you have Fabian Eichner walk away then.
It's really quite confusing, isn't it?
Like that's fine. Like, if you want to bring up Imperium, I'm cool with that. That makes a whole lot of sense. But then why do you have Eichner just walk away? Like, so much of the show doesn't make any sense, and it's hurting my head.
Yep. NXT is painful today. NXT is painful today, but not. It's not a bad show in any stretch of the imagination.
It's been a fun show to watch.
It's been great fun to have in the background, as it were. But it's confusing booking. Very confusing. And Sean says Alexa did the arm thing in the match at Great Balls of Fire. Ooh. Megan has a lightning round for you.
Ooh.
One match has to go. Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber, Hell in a Cell. One of them has to go.
Elimination Chamber. That's easy. I like the Elimination Chamber, but I think... Oh, Papa Steiner.
What the hell?
Uh-oh.
Interesting.
Why is he tied up and locked in a cage? Oh, Joe Gacy.
I mean, we knew he was there. I think this is a good way to use him.
I just didn't see him getting the main event push.
I don't necessarily think it'll be a long-term thing, but it's a good start. Now, to be clear, are we on a commercial break, or has the show actually ended?
No, that show is just ended.
The show has ended. Okay.
I think. It's 10:03. The thing just ended. We're now watching the Randy Orton episode of Evil, I would believe.
You would be. I would not, because I'm watching on BT Sport. Oh. So, now seems a good time to wrap up. You, of course, need to talk to your people and get ready for NXT, which is at twitch.tv/lovewrestlingca if you want to check out Ed's work there. I do heartily suggest it. Ed is someone who's been a regular in these chats for a long time, basically since day one. In fact, not basically, since day one. And it's been great seeing the development, the confidence, and the talent on display, sir.
Well, thank you very much. It's been fun to be there and to support you through all of this, and to be the man behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, if you speak. Just kind of being there to push you in this direction or push you in that direction, or just be the sounding board to be like, this isn't working. All right, cool. Let's find something that is. Let's find the next thing that works.
I've always considered myself very lucky to have you, especially during some of the darker times. I'll say that right now. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you on this channel in the future. Megan says, I thought that would have been more of a discussion. He seemed pretty confident. And Sean says, see you on Friday. We will have a show on Thursday at our usual time, 10 p.m. UK time. That's 5 p.m. Eastern time. That is with Gleb or Brillman about the AEW financial situation. We're going to dive in as deep as we can, given the information out there. And of course, we will have spoiler warning and the SmackDown Watch Party on Friday. In the meantime, I want to thank you, Ed, for joining me. And I want to say, I've been Tom Colohue. He's been Ed Fries. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.